Yes, you can. And their certificates are right. By the way, in the back, we're not going to play the Hezekiah song. We don't have time. Thank you.
I would invite Adam and Jessica, Sean up real quick. And we're going to present.
I do want to welcome you. I'm glad you're here today. It is Grandparents' Day, and we're going to have a great time today. I'll run through my sermon as quickly as I can because I know time is fleeting quickly, but we've had an awesome morning. Nothing better than watching baptisms. I'll stay till 2 o'clock if we have that many baptisms. Sermon is titled From the Walker to the Walker. If you have your outline, I will try to fill in the outline. Are we going to be able to get the outline up on the screen or not? You think so? Okay, if it is, it is. If it's not, I'll be very clear. All right. Someone has said there are 4 stages to a man's life. First, you believe in Santa Claus. Second, you don't believe in Santa Claus. Third, you are Santa Claus. And fourth, you look like Santa Claus. No matter how you look at life, there's no doubt that you become philosophical the older you get. A few years ago, there was a wonderful movie called The Bucket List. In fact, I know I have a friend, Jamie Morphew. Some of you might know Jamie and her family. She and her son do a bucket list every summer. And I saw him just the other day in a restaurant. I said, "Did you get your bucket list finished?" He said, "Yes." He's just a teenager. He has a bucket list, things he wants to get done in that summertime. For us, it's the bucket list, what you want to get done before you die. Today I want to use some very visible props to help show you the different stages of life. And so we're going to begin with a baby walker. Now, a lot of you have these for your kids. We even have one in the nursery down there. It's a little fancy with all sorts of toys and all sorts of gadgets. But I want you to know, you put some Cheerios in this, and it's the first drive-through restaurant you ever had. So for many of us, we began with a baby walker. That's how we began to walk and grow. And then we grew up and we got a tricycle. You remember those days of your child going from the walker to the tricycle, and they're heading down that driveway, and you're just going petrified. Are they going to run out in the street? Are they going to be all right? And they learn to ride a tricycle. And then we graduate, and we get a bicycle. Now, I don't know about you, my first bike was a Huffy bike with big balloon tires. Now, I'll be honest with you, we're probably talking, 1956 or 7, something like that. I'm 8 or 9 years old. Had big balloon tires on it. And we even put, raise your hands if you did this, we even put baseball cards in the spokes. Did you do that? Yeah, that's what we did. Then you get to be 16 years old. And what do you get when you're 16 years old? What do you get? Adam, what are you wanting to get? A driver's license. So he can drive a car. I couldn't put a car up here. So I have a 55 Chevy Bel Air. Some of you may have had one. Others of us wish we had one. Others of us today still wish we had one. But there's nothing like that moment when it's 10 and 2 and you're driving down the road in your own first car. And for me, it was a 1965 Dodge Dart with its slant 6 225 engine, would run forever. I ran it into the ground. What a great car. Not my favorite car, but that's what I started with. And then a little later in life, maybe it's a midlife crisis, maybe it's not, but some of you may even get a motorcycle. So, I know Brenda and I used to ride bikes. I don't know, there's a picture. Did we ever get the picture loaded? I have a picture of us and our motorcycle from years ago. But we went through that time when we rode in a motorcycle group with a lot of people, a lot of friends. We rode all the time, all over the country. Yeah, there's our Harley Davidson trike that we had. Now I want you to note the dogs. They're all beautifully groomed because they were groomed by Miss Carlane. She groomed Norm and Teddy. Yes, we had a dog named Norman Bates. Dr. John, you just got it. Dr. John Smith said to me, he said, I will never forget Norm. He's our 9-pound psycho killer. He's the little white one in my arm. So that's the motorcycle we drove with. It's very safe. It is probably the only thing I wish I still had of all the vehicles I have ever owned. Yes, Carlene. Yes, it is the one that got stuck in the Eisenhower Tunnel. Not a good time to break down. And Francine will tell you, we have a mutual friend, Frances Gillen. Some of you know Frances Gillen. And I promised her 10 years ago I would take her for a ride on my motorcycle, and I never did. And every time I go into Garden Valley, she says to me, I'm still waiting for that motorcycle ride. And but that was our motorcycle. All right. Then maybe later in life, you end up in a wheelchair. Now, some would put the wheelchair after the walker, but it doesn't go as well, walker to the wheelchair, as it does walker to the walker. So the walker's got to be last. Yeah, I forgot the cane. I'm sorry. But I want to tell you about a friend of mine. His name is Donnie. He never rode a bike. He never drove a car. Donnie was born severely brain damaged and spent all of his life in a wheelchair just like this. And Marge and Harvey would bring Donnie to church. And when I first met Donnie, he was probably 35 years old. His parents did a wonderful job of leading him to Christ and having him work through the disabilities that he had. If you ever met Donnie, if you ever go into the Rock Creek Christian Church outside of Oregon City, Oregon, and I pray that Donnie might still be there, you will meet the guy with the biggest smile in the world and a handshake that's just amazing. You see, his only mode of transportation was a wheelchair. And then finally, we come to the walker. So we go from the walker to the walker. For many people, it's the last mode of transportation. You watch people shuffling along, unable to lift their feet as they shuffle through the last days of their lives. We have watched this phase up close and personal. Someday, we might be the ones with that walker. Some of us are already facing those days. I remember the day that Brenda's parents, her dad, walked with a walker. As he battled Parkinson's disease for 13 years. I remember the day that Edna took his keys away. This is a guy who drove a car all of his life. You see, as we get older, we get more philosophical. So I have 3 points I want to make about my sermon. We'll move through them very quickly. This is not only for our grandparents, this is for all of us in life. And I want to tell you to live life to the fullest. Absolutely live life to the fullest. Number one, life is short. And it happens just like this. John 4:14 says, "What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes." And Moses wrote in Psalms 90:12, "Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." We're only here for a little while. Life is short, and we need to take advantage of every single day. I used to jokingly say, and Brendan never said this, but I jokingly would say this, that when we had the Harley, Brenda would say, "I know when it's your time, it's your time. But I pray when it's your time, I'm not in the back of the Harley." I don't know how many days we have, but I know that we need to take advantage of them. I can remember the day that we took Brenda's father. Her mother had died that evening, the caregiver for her husband. And we had to put him in a nursing home the next day because there was no one that was there to take care of him. He lived in Wichita. We put him in a very nice home. It was very sad for him, us, everybody. Our life is short, and it's filled with troubles. Ecclesiastes 12, 1 to 5 says, "Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come. And the years approach when you will say, I will find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dim, and the clouds return from after the rain, when the keepers of the house tremble, and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease." That's talking about your teeth, folks, if you didn't realize it. "When the grinders cease because they are few, and those looking through the windows grow dim. When the doors to the street are closed, and the sound of grinding fades. When men rise up at the sound of the birds, but all their songs grow faint. When men are afraid of heights and dangers in the streets. When the almond our hair, when the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags himself along, and desire no longer to be stirred, then man goes to his eternal home, and mourners go about the streets. Friends, it all happens in the blink of an eye. So make the most of every single day that we have. All right, point 2, God is faithful. Just very simple. God is faithful. When you walk with Christ, when you walk with the Creator, when you, as we sang some of the songs this morning, we have a God who is faithful. You know, worry comes to all of us in a variety of stages, a variety of ways. Some of us worry a lot. Some of us don't worry much at all. The pandemic has put a lot of us in panic. It has. A lot of fear. I think we're getting better through it as we work through it. But we need to put our trust in God. I've said it for years, but I've said it week after week after week from the middle of March when we first started the pandemic. We need to put our faith and trust in God. Matthew 6:27. If you're worrying about things, read Matthew 6. The middle chapter of the Sermon on the Mount, 5, 6, and 7. But at the end of chapter 6, he talks about worrying. He says, who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? We can't add a single minute to our life. We need to trust in God, and I choose to surrender every day to the Creator of the universe, especially in tough times, because I know He alone will produce joy and peace and understanding because God is faithful. David writes in the 136th Psalm these wonderful words. Let me listen to these words. 136th Psalm, verses 1 to 9. I give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of gods, small g and the second God. His love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord of lords. His love endures forever. To Him who alone does great wonders, His love endures forever. Who by His understanding made the heavens, His love endures forever. Who spread out the earth upon the waters, His love endures. Who made the great lights, His love endures. And the moon and the stars to govern the night, His love endures. Then in verse 17 of the 39th Psalm, 139th Psalm, David writes these words. How precious are your thoughts concerning me, you. And he says, my God. Have you ever had someone come up to you and say to you, I was just thinking about you? Well, that's exactly what God says to you every single day. I was just thinking about you, Lotus. I was just thinking about you, Jean. That's what God says to us every single day of our life. We think we're so alone. Many of us fear every day because we feel like we're alone. And God says, no, I was just thinking about you. We're precious to Him. We're important to Him. He's the focus of our worship. With Brenda's parents going through the struggles they went through the last 13 years, I want to tell you about her parents. I want to tell you about Brenda and her family. They all chose joy. They knew that Dick was not going to get any better, that this Parkinson's was eventually going to kill him, and it did 13 years later. We didn't know the caregiver was going to go first. But you know, they chose joy. Brenda and I chose joy. Her brother and his wife chose joy. Her sister chose joy. We need to choose joy. Have you ever watched kids eat watermelon? We cut it up. I've seen it in our potlucks out here, by the way. You could bring watermelon to every potluck, and the preacher would be as happy as if you brought pistachio ice cream, okay? Just telling you I love watermelon. Am I right, Roy? I will tell you when I go into timeout, I look at the buffet, he will tell you, I'm not making this up. The next thing I go to look on the salad bar, do they have watermelon? If they don't have watermelon, I'm not having a salad bar. But have you ever watched little kids? We like it all cut up with the seeds taken out of it. Little kids, they just get into it. Man, they are slurping it everywhere. And that's how we need to be about joy. We need to consume it. We need to make it a part of our lives. Bob Buford wrote a wonderful book called Halftime. He talks about coming out of the second half of life and making a difference. All athletes know how important it is to come out and dominate the third and fourth quarter of a game. Some of us are in the third and fourth quarters of our lives. Some of us might be into overtime even. And still others of us might be in sudden death. I'm not making any statement. We need to come out live with joy as a part of our voice. And I've told you this before. I even said this last week. So I'm not saying this because Miss Marie is in the room today. But when I go to Marie and Burl's house, and I'm proud to say he married an older woman and he's 93, okay? Some of you just got that. She's about 6 months old. She's actually 94. It is a joy to come into their house, whether she serves me ice cream or not. It is a joy. She chooses joy. I know a lot of 93-year-olds. Go visit Peggy Flynn. You want to be uplifted? She's even 5 days older than Marie. She's older than dirt. Go visit Peggy Flynn. You want to be uplifted? That lady makes me inspired. She is so full of joy. I have never come into her house, not one time, and had her moan and groan. Ever. Not one time at Burl and Marie's. Not one time at Virginia's. Opal's. We have some very wonderful senior saints who have all the right in the world to complain about anything under the sun, and every time I go there, I walk away with joy in my heart. Someone has said failure is to succeed at something that doesn't matter at all. We need to succeed at things that matter, and life matters. We need to be filled with joy. We need to make our life filled with joy. Life is short. Life is short. Stephen Trotter and Lori Martin, in June of 1995, decided to have the date of a lifetime. They decided to go over Niagara Falls together in a barrel. Now that's a first date, folks. I don't know if that's commitment or what. The USA Today article reported that they had fixed the barrel with oxygen tanks and all sorts of padding. His brother and friends pushed Trotter out into the water, and 15 seconds after that, they were at the bottom. For 15 seconds, they were without control about anything in life. And that is exactly how God wants you and me to live. Without any control, because we've turned it all over to Him to control our lives. Some of us may be in one of those seasons of life, and God reminds us that life is short and He is faithful. So we will dive in with reckless joy. We need to hook up with a faithful God and choose joy. It's a choice. It's a choice. Today we're going to sing a hymn of decision. I have decided to follow Jesus. Is that the hymn? Okay. It's in your hymnal. What's the number? 6:02. We saw some young people, and I'm going to call Jessica a young person.